Hug your kids and kiss your wife, tuck them in and say goodnight. Dr. Theo Medicine Man Show. Grab a beer and take a seat, get you something good to eat. Dr. Theo Medicine Man Show. It is time for us to come together, no matter politics or sports or weather. Watching this will make you smart, learn the physics of the fart. Theo Medicine Man Show. Now, before we get started, I do want to remind everybody to comment, like, and share below. I would also like to thank Desk Rig for being our first official sponsor of the Dr. Theo Medicine Man Show. My good friend Garen Parkins, a local homegrown Greene Countian, that first saw my potential to expand online presence and creating a professional appearance, reached out to me. And because Desk Rig's personalized advice to help me get the equipment and software that I need for more professional service, I sit here today for my first semi-structured professional broadcast. Although, once again, stay tuned because episode 2 and 3 may end up being quite different than what we're looking at here. Now, if Desk Rig can help me and my show, and you're looking for more professional online appearance, be sure to reach out, and we'll post their website in the comment links below. If you're interested in any advertisement space on this show, feel free to reach out to me. We can discuss pricing, time options, whatever else like that. But every now and then we'll have a little bit of a commercial break. Now, for transparency purposes, I want to be clear that I did not profit 1 penny in any way off of the 2020 pandemic due to COVID-19. I saw patients as a physician, and that was that. There was no payments from any other organization, any other group, and all the advocacy that I did was just strictly for the benefit of my community. Now, the profits for 2021 from whatever happens here on the Dr. Theo Medicine Man Show, if there's even any profits, they'll actually go to the local communities. Myself and a group of team members have all decided that we want to change the world, and this may be a venue to do that. We want to try to reach out to those suffering, to those hurting. So here we go with episode 1. This will be different, but sometimes funny. We'll talk about love, we'll talk about mental health. And then later on in other episodes, we'll cover things like sugar and diabetes, cancer and addiction. We'll talk about vaccines, we'll talk about science, we'll talk about faith. And I plan on continuing some of my free medical advice, just like I always have, especially on COVID-19 for the next few months. After that, I'm going to enjoy a great 2021, and I'm going to invite you to do the same. I'll be budgeting a little bit more time for a direct production of this show, but otherwise I'm going to be focusing on family and friends and getting back to normal. So without ado, let us begin. What we're going to have tonight is a ballad of a few different songs. Now, some of these I wrote and added words my own. So those are going to be very obvious. The second is just simply a Christian song that I really enjoy. But if you follow through, you'll see that they all go together. And I'm going to take you on a journey. Welcome. Wasn't that bad, could have been worse. We were really just mad. It's time to wake up, it's 2021. And my screen went down, look at that for a live show. We're back again though. 2020 is come and gone, somewhere lost but we moved on. Wake me up when 2020 ends. Let's take a moment to remember here comes COVID again after the holidays. After this awful year, let's learn to love. Let's just have fun. It's time to wake up. It's 2020 wasn't that bad. Could have been worse. We were all just mad. It's time to wake up. It's 2021. The first 2 months won't be much fun. There'll be still people crying. It's time to wake up. It's 2021. I got enough fight with 2020, 2021. I knew I was right, the 2021. Gonna live my life and do what is right. 2021. So forgive me for a brief technical interruption, as happened the last time I did a live broadcast for music. Now, as promised, when I talk about what happened in 2020, it was really pretty crazy, let's be honest. It could have been a lot worse. See, back when we first started this war, we all thought we were getting into World War III. You see, we had bombed a foreign country. They started shooting missiles back at us. I don't know about you, but at that moment I was scared. Because I thought we were about to get into just a really bad situation we'd never seen. Perhaps the thought of nuclear warfare, maybe worse. But it didn't happen. Now, I'm not saying what happened next was all that good. It was a really long year. It was a terrible year, in fact. But we got through it. Well, most of us did. So before we can really move on with our lives, I think that we need to put it all behind us. We need to, in fact, bury 2020. That's not an easy thing to do. So, what I'm talking about this year is how to be happy. How to exercise, how to eat right. And I'm going to try to lead by example and do those things. I'm going to talk about how to interact on the internet. I'll talk about some of the lessons that I've learned. But until then, we're going to enjoy the evening. Now, we're going to talk about fear. It's going to be my next subject. One of the things we heard from a lot of people this past year was to not live in fear. Now, they were wrong about a lot of things. People said that actually were right. We don't need to fear. We need to live life. Now, living life may mean something different to each one of us. And I'm not suggesting don't take precautions. Once again, Now's the time we need to take precautions more than any other time, let's be honest. But we can live our life with a minimal amount of sacrifice the next few months and then get back to normal. The only way we ever get back to normal is if we fight fear and have faith that everything will be okay. So that's what we're going to talk about now. I'll give you a song, one of my favorite Christian songs. When he told you you're not good enough, when he told you you're not right, when he told you you're not strong enough to put up a good fight, when he told you you're not worthy, when he told you you're not loved, you're not beautiful, never be enough. Fear is a liar. He will take your breath, stop you in your steps. Fear is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal your happiness, cast your fear. You'll forever be alone. Told you should run away and never find a home. Told you you're not dirty when you should be ashamed. When he told you you could be the one grace could never change. 'Cause fear, he is a liar. He will take your breath, steps. Fear, he is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal your happiness, cast your fear in the fire of his fear. He is a liar. Let your fire fall and cast out all your fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is always real. 'Cause fear, he is a liar. He will take your breath, stop you in your steps. Fear, he is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal your happiness, cast your fear in the fire of his fear. He is a liar. His fear. He is a liar. Man, I love that song. Not nearly as good as the original artist, but hey, you're welcome, and happy 2021. My gift to you, it's free. Like it or hate it, I'm okay with it. Now, first of all, we're going to be having more and more discussions going forward about feelings. And one of the great inspirations actually for talking about feelings, to me at least, was Mr. Rogers. I don't know about you, but I grew up on a small farm and we had about 4 channels, maybe in one room where you have the bunny ears and you move them around, and the main room that an actual physical antenna has to be moved to tune into different TV stations depending on where they're broadcast from certain mountains. Yes, I know, younger kids, that sounds crazy, but that's what it was in my childhood. So we didn't have a lot of TV stations. We didn't have all the technology and other things like we do now today. So Mr. Rogers, as well as other kids' cartoons, had been a big influence in my life. You know, it wasn't really until I realized as an adult watching Mr. Rogers with my own children about how much of an impact that actually was. You see, I always remembered the puppets and the little songs and the little train going to the imaginary land and of make-believe. And I remember Mr. Rogers, you know, changing shoes and putting on a sweater and singing a little song and everything else like that. But to be honest, I don't remember the content. And I think maybe some of it set in, maybe not, but it wasn't really until as an adult, like I said, watching it with my kids, that it really sunk in that the message that he had. And of course, if you haven't seen it, by all means, I've encouraged people and had this conversation that you should talk with your family, plan a night, sit down, and watch the remake movie of Mr. Rogers. I guess the original that was by Tom Hanks, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I've learned a lot from that movie and watching that series, and it's something that I talk about in the exam room on a regular basis. Something I talk about with my children on a regular basis. Something I talk about with myself in my interactions with my spouse and other people on a daily basis is that it's okay to have feelings. We all have feelings. That's human. We are angry. We're happy. We're sad. In fact, there's actually 5 stages of sadness. And for several months, I kind of put that together with the 5 stages of COVID. You see, the first stage of grief and sadness is usually denial. We deny that a problem is real or that a situation maybe is as bad as it is. And some people never leave denial. I know when I've lost family members to cancer that when you first hear that diagnosis, you say this must be a bad dream. And maybe I need to pinch myself and wake up. And that maybe it's not going to be that bad. Right? I've been there. And I think there were a fair amount of people in 2020 that did just that. They stayed in this point of, hey, this isn't that bad, this is just another flu, and all the other excuses that people might have given to not take it seriously. Now, to be clear, as I've said before, this 2020 could have been way, way worse than it was. We avoided World War III. This was not as bad as it otherwise could have been, all things considering. Yes, we've lost well over 300,000 people in the last 10 months. And that's a big deal. But it could have been a lot worse. So I started thinking about it. And this was over the course of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day as I was processing, thinking about, okay, what happened this year, and what could have gone better and what could have gone worse. Now, I don't know about you, but every year I always think, okay, I wanted to lose 20 pounds this year, but I gained 10. So that's, well, so last year in that department was pretty good on my end. I've lost an overall about 15 pounds compared to the previous year. So that was good. That was a personal goal of mine. And even through the chaos of me wanting to stuff my face in quarantine and everything, I did decent. But could have done better. And I'm sure there's things that you could have done better too. The point is, we can't heal until we get past our feelings of 2020. Now, some of us are very frustrated. I know that I've been very frustrated. Some of us were frustrated that other people weren't seeming to care. They weren't trying. They weren't taking precautions. They weren't listening to scientists or doctors or whatever else. So then when we get to the second stage of grief, of sadness, of depression, and anxiety, the second stage after bargaining, second stage after denial is bargaining. Bargaining is when you try to change the circumstances that you're in some kind of extreme way. Okay? For example, when my father was diagnosed with a terminal cancer 5 years ago, I briefly was in denial, but that was just from shock. But I did spend some time bargaining, and the bargaining was essentially along the lines of, oh, well, dear God, please, intervene, use your almighty power, and make this not real, or heal my sick and loved one. If you do, I'll do this and that and the other. It's bargaining like a child wanting a special treat. I will do whatever you want to change the outcome. And a lot of us in 2020 were stuck in bargaining. I know I was. I spent probably most of the year there coming up with creative ways to reach out to people, to educate. And I tried science and facts, started out with a little bit of music earlier in the year, and realized that we weren't really getting anywhere with that. But it was at least fun and healing, and I always heard requests to do more of that. So that's kind of what inspired me for tonight, which we're not over, first of all. But in general, the year I spent bargaining, and some of that was aggressive. Some of it was using psychology, reverse psychology. Some of it was pleading to the heart. Some of it was inflammatory, and some of that was on purpose to get the attention of people. Now, after denial and bargaining in the stages of grief, which, once again, that's what we're talking about here tonight, just in case you're just now joining in, we're talking about putting 2020 to rest and starting fresh with 2021. But we can't start fresh with 2021 until we properly process what exactly was that happened in 2020. And if we're going to get back to normal, if we're going to be happy, we got to do that, and we got to start now. We're going through the 5 stages of grief, and then I'm setting some goals. I want you to set some goals too. First stage of grief, denial. Second stage of grief is bargaining. Third and fourth stages, first of all, they can one can come before the other. So I'm going to present them together. But the third and fourth stage of grief are anger and depression. Once again, back to Mr. Rogers style, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to have feelings. You don't have a choice of the feelings that you have. You do have a choice of how you react to those feelings. Just like when my young children start hitting each other, that something's not fair and they've been wronged in some way, they start wrestling and fighting, and someone ends up getting punched or crying, and then it's just a mess, right? And I think that's our basic instinct is, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back. Right? I mean, who here has done that in their marriage? I know I have. The first few years of my marriage were a challenge. And as I've told many friends and my wife, I have learned to love her more and more every year. Now, some of that was working on me. Some of that was learning to be patient. Some of that was learning to accept that, hey, I can be wrong. Now, that was tough. We've talked about that before, is admitting, is there a possibility that I'm wrong? Is the evidence overwhelming otherwise, or do we not know? So, when we talk about where you're at right now, in the stage of grief, of whatever it was that happened in 2020, because bet to venture that the majority of you, if you're watching right now, you're still grieving. You're still maybe dealing with anxiety. You're still maybe dealing with depression or anger or fear. And in case you missed it, I sang a very mediocre version of Fear is a Liar a little while ago. And maybe I'll polish it up and do it again sometime. But it's important to not live in fear while also loving your neighbor. And I use those terms, and there were several specific biblical terms and examples that I talked about on a regular basis back through the year. And I wanted to kind of summate and explain that a little bit here this evening as we're dealing with grief and we're putting 2020 to bed. We're putting it in the past. We can look at it with 2020 vision. And so as we're doing that, and as we're going through exactly what happened, exactly what you're dealing with and what I'm dealing with, we have to eventually work towards the fifth stage of grief of the 5 stages. And the 5th stage is acceptance. Now, some of you probably hit acceptance a little earlier than other people out there. I know it wasn't really for me until the past probably couple weeks. You know, I think that when I woke up on Christmas morning and had a beautiful white Christmas, and the peaceful and serenity of that sign to me was finally at, okay, I'm at peace. I can accept this. But it was a really long journey. And so the reason I'm explaining these things here to you tonight is I want to help heal. I want to help us move on. I want to help us to grow. I want to challenge each one of you to imagine yourselves at the end of the year and looking back at 2021. Where do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of goals do you want to reach? What kind of new skills do you want to have? Because happiness doesn't just happen. Happiness is something that's worked at on a regular basis. It doesn't just happen from luck, right? In a future episode, hint, hint, no spoiler alerts, right? In a future episode, we're actually going to examine potentially somebody who seemingly has everything, but still isn't happy. And so I've been asking all my friends a question, and I've been asking people on this page a question of who is the happiest person that you know and why? And what qualities do they have that we could emulate to be happy like them? And I've got a lot of great responses. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit more over the next several weeks and months. But in general, people that are happy are people that are content with whatever situation they're in life. They have relationships with one another, with their family. They have a spiritual relationship with God. They have an intellectual relationship with whatever it is that feeds their brains. And they have a mental relationship with whatever the mood may be in that particular day. So as we're talking about happiness, we really have to talk about all 5 of those parts of health. Because if we're not healthy in one specific way, we're not going to be happy. And once again, happiness isn't just going to happen magically going forward. It's something you're going to have to work at. Something I'm working at. So I want to announce to you my goals for 2021. And so far, I'm putting a ton of energy into those goals the past few days. And it's going to take a ton of time and energy going forward to meet those goals as well. First goal is to be a better husband. Now, I won't get into the details of those things. I think I'm decent as it was, but I can do better. I know I can. And there's going to be some things that I do to help achieve that goal. One of those being scheduling the Dr. Theo Medicine Man show, like we are right now, and a little bit less of the banter back and forth, a little bit less of diving into the comment sections online, and staying away from social media and my phone as much as I can going forward. In fact, there will be a time where I take an extended hiatus this year from all news and all media. And I suggest you consider the same at some point, because you're probably neglecting other things in life. Second goal that I have is to be a better father. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think I'm a bad father by any means, but you can always do better. And there's certain things that I'm going to do and have already done to take those steps. I'm going to be a better son. And yes, Mommy, I know you're probably watching, and I'll talk with you soon. I'm going to be, hopefully, a better Christian. To me, that means reading the Bible more, spending more time by myself in meditation, in deep thought, and prayerfulness. And I greatly, greatly look forward to being back in church in person. So that's me. That's my goals. Now, I'm going to continue my goal from last year of trying to be more physically healthy, because I do need to lead by example. And we'll be talking in future shows about things like food addiction and how it's just as bad and sinful as any other addiction out there, whether it be nicotine, alcohol, or any hard drug that you can imagine. We can be addicted to technology. We can be addicted to food. We can be addicted to anything that consumes us. And if anything consumes you, you won't be happy. In future episodes, we'll also be talking about things like the 7 deadly sins and how the Bible is one of the greatest public health textbooks and oldest public health textbooks in all of time. We'll talk about that too. And once again, this isn't a forcing religion down your throat type of thing, but we're going to examine it. It's really interesting. I'll have guests, hopefully from time to time, and talk about these things. So I want you to really examine yourself and examine your life. And right now, there are things that are not in your control. Whatever's not in your control, give to God. Whatever is in your control, do something about it. Stop making excuses and do something. Change. Pick 2 to 4 things that really need working in your life. Maybe that's organization and spring cleaning, like me. Maybe that's creating an actual schedule for life where you put things on a calendar. That's what I'm doing right now. It's really weird. Never done this before. That's what I'm doing. Time to schedule exercise. Time to schedule vacations. And if you haven't already started planning a vacation for the summer, you need to. You got to set things ahead of time to where you can look forward and to say, hey, I can get through the next few weeks at work or whatever it is because I'm getting to go on this trip and it's going to be great. All right, you've got to set lights at the end of the tunnel or you're going to go crazy. If you want a better marriage, you're going to have to learn to talk to your spouse. If you want to be a better father or a better son or daughter or a better mother or a better sister or a better brother, better friend, you're going to have to do things that you haven't done ever in the past, or maybe you haven't done well, and you're going to have to go out of your comfort zone. I don't know about you, but this summer, I'm going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to not only call up and invite old friends that I really cherished, but just have kind of fallen apart from. I'm not only going to invite them to talk with me over the phone if necessary, but otherwise in person. I'm going to have holiday gatherings and I'm going to enjoy them every single moment. Listen, we have the potential, if we work on our hearts, if we put 2020 to rest, we have the potential of doing great things. That could be for ourselves, for our community. That could be for a stranger. But it's all brand new. And it's up to you. So pick 2 to 4 things that you can work on about yourself that you want to do better and focus on those. And every day, keep yourself honest. Keep yourself motivated. Talk about those things. Look at yourself in the mirror. Give yourself a pep speech if you need to do those things. You know, how often are we out there wishing, I wish people loved me more. I wish people liked me more. But they don't reach out to me. They don't call me. I think I know why that is. Used to, when I was growing up, once again, back in the antenna days where you had to tune in the rabbit ears to which TV station you were listening to coming from which mountain. Back in those days, we used to hang out in person. That's something the current teenagers will be doing a lot differently than when I grew up or when maybe you grew up. We used to haul giant 27-inch, 100-pound televisions in the back of our cars and go over to each other's house playing Nintendo or Xbox or things like that. Those were great days. In fact, you know what? If I used to have Xbox parties with you, I'm going to go ahead and just invite you now. Let's get together this summer. Let's do it. Let's find a basement, a lot of Cheetos and Mountain Dew and Little Caesars pizza, and just have a good old time, right? Find something that you enjoy and find a way to make it happen. Plan that time for friend time, for family time, because otherwise you're going to get burnt out. And I think that's what most of us are right now. That's why we're being angry to each other and irritable and mean on social media, because we've forgotten how to talk to each other in person, face to face. And when 90% of communication is nonverbal, what do you expect? Right? I mean, there's been plenty of times when I've suggested things that I think were overall pretty decent ideas or were not meant in a bad way, yet someone took it poorly, wrongly, unintended, because they were reading what you wrote from their emotional perspective. If they're already angry, if they're already paranoid, if they're already mad, if they're already sad, when they read whatever you write, it doesn't matter what you write or necessarily how you write it. You could be in a good, happy mood talking about sarcasm and funny things, and they would destroy you. Now, let's be honest here. When people are mean to you, when people say things that make you mad, the only way you give them power is to respond with anger. Now, that's in real life and digitally, first of all. So what you need to do, and what I need to do, what we all need to do better, is to learn how to talk to each other again. And eventually putting away things like social media. Or at least taking a break. The next couple months are going to be a little rough. And that's what I've talked about kind of all year with the analogies of that the floods are coming and we're building a boat and it's time to get on the boat and the boat's setting sail and winter is coming, and right now we're in the middle of winter. There's a lot of people sick. The hospitals are getting and are overwhelmed, and it's probably going to get pretty nasty here over the next few weeks, but it will get better. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's through a safe and effective vaccine. Right now, roughly 2 million people have gotten vaccinated against COVID, and there's been very few significant reactions to the vaccine and no deaths. And everybody's forgetting that we're fighting an illness that kills 1 out of 50 people. So as we move on from 2020, don't forget the seriousness. Don't take your foot off the accelerator. Take precautions as if your life depends on it or your loved ones depends on it. But if you're taking precautions and you're doing all the right things, you don't have to be sad. You don't have to be angry. But if you are those things, that's okay. Just remember, you can't change other people with what you say or what you type. The only way to change other people is to change yourself first and then show others how wonderful life is if you can learn to be happy. Now, happy is not complacent. Happy is not pretending like you don't need to take things precautions. You don't need to take things seriously. You don't need to do common sense, decent things to help protect your neighbors in a time of need. In fact, that's going to be some of the top things I'm also going to be focusing on going forward is the phrases and lessons like love your neighbor. In a lot of my posts last year, I talked about our neighbors. That's what I mean. I mean it in a biblical sense. Yes, I have physical neighbors that live in other houses near me, but I'm talking about my neighbors in the community. The Mr. Rogers style, won't you be my neighbor? Please, won't you be my neighbor? So once again, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to have emotions. You can't control those emotions, but you can control what you do about them and how you respond. If you're anxious or angry or sad, you need to get outside when it's warm and get some sunlight. You need to get some fresh air. You need to get exercise. Exercise literally releases endorphins. And you need to make time to actually do those things. We're all busy, myself included, and it's time to put excuses in the wayside and do it. So examine your own heart. Think about which stages of grief you have been, whether it's from the chaos of 2020 or if you have lost a loved one to COVID-19 or any other causes. All are important. If you're grieving, I care about you no matter why you're grieving. In fact, here's a really good lesson that everybody needs to start practicing when they hear someone has died over the next few months. When you hear someone has passed away, you respond with your condolences. You don't ask them, did they die from COVID? Did they die from something else? What's on the death certificate? What was the course? Was it really COVID or not? You say, I am so sorry for what you're going through. Maybe you can't imagine what they've gone through with the loss of a spouse or a son or daughter or other family member. Maybe it's a parent, someone who maybe couldn't even have visitors in a waiting room, much less in an actual hospital room. So if you're grieving out there, just first of all identify denial, bargaining. And once you get through those, if you're still stuck in them, you need to come to grips with reality. And I know that's hard to say, and I don't mean that heartless. We need to get past denial and past bargaining. We need to get past anger. We need to get past depression. And tune in, and we'll talk about those going forward. What I'm going to ask is that you enjoy the last few minutes we have together and tune in on future days to the Dr. Theo Medicine Man Show. I'm heading to the beach after 2020. Gonna take my mama, gonna take my friends and family. Gonna be happy in 2021. Gonna go camping, go fishing, go swimming. Gonna see extended family on Christmas, Thanksgiving. I'm gonna be happy in 2021. Don't rock me, baby, like 2020. Hold me night and tell me I'm sexy. Let's have some fun in 2021. I'm gonna go to church and eat out in restaurants. Gonna have my family around and open up the presents. Christmas gonna be happy in 21. Gonna see old friends and tell them I miss them. Gonna go and hug them and squeeze them and kiss them. We're gonna be happy in 2021. To rock me, baby, like 2020. Hold me tight every night and tell me I'm sexy. Let's have fun in 2021. Don't rock me, baby, like 2020. Hold me tight every night and tell me I'm sexy. Let's have some fun in 2021. I got my vaccine and it's really quite a dream. If you get one too, I'm telling you, come on over, bro, let's shoot some pool. Let's get back to normal 2021. Rock me, baby, like 2020. Hold me tight every night, tell me I'm sexy. Let's have some fun in 2021. Now that was fun. gotta be honest, that was a lot of fun. So, as we end tonight, I've actually been working on this for an entire year. Or at least it feels like an entire year. It's time we reset our hearts and reset our minds, and we prepare for being happy. To me, preparing for happy means that COVID is finally over. And once again, it will be. This won't last for forever. Even if there's spot COVID around, we're still going to have better treatments and vaccinations and those types of things. Life will get better. Life will improve. So as we close tonight's episode of the Dr. Theo Medicine Man Show, I want you to imagine a time where there's no corona. A time when we're all able to be together. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to be sure to like, share, comment. And if you want to sponsor the show for funds to go here in Greene County and some also in other counties of Northeast Tennessee, then please like, share. If you have any desire to advertise, like the first advertisement when we started, let me know. In the meantime, stay well, be happy, and put 2020 behind you. Thanks for tuning in to the Dr. Theo Show. Excuse me, the Dr. Theo Medicine Man Show. That's going to take some practice. And we'll see you in the next few weeks, Sunday nights, at 9 p.m. when I'm able to produce. Have a good night. Hug your kids and kiss your wife, tuck them in and say goodnight. Dr. Theo Medicine Man Show. Grab a beer and take a seat, get you something good to eat. Dr. Theo Medicine Man Show. It is time for us to come together, no matter politics or sports or weather. Watching this will make you smart, learn the physics of a fart. Theo Medicine Man Show.